The Honda S2000 is proof that you do not need a lot of power to have fun in a car. This tiny little two-seater roadster has a 2-liter naturally aspirated 4-cylinder that makes 240 horsepower at 8,300 RPM and only 153 pound-feet of torque at 7,500 RPM. That's not a lot of torque, but this thing is still definitely fun to drive. Now, it's a very high revving motor. 9,000 RPM, which is pretty awesome, 6-speed manual only, rear-wheel drive only, and a curb weight of just under 2,800 pounds. This vehicle was designed as Honda's kind of 50th anniversary present to itself, trying to figure out what they could do with a fun-to-drive sports car. As a early first-generation car, this is what they called Ap1. This car was built from 2000 model year all the way up through, I think, 2009. They did a refresh throughout the generations with the Ap1, Ap2. This is a very, very clean example of an early S2000. In terms of exterior styling, it's simple, it's clean, it's sporty. It's just got basic dual tailpipes out back, tiny little roadster. It's actually quite tiny. 2,800 pounds is very light. I've been driving a 4,200 pound Mustang for the last couple of days, and parked next to us, it looks like a monster truck. Also, at 6'3", me getting into this tiny little S2K, I feel like a giant because my head is like above the windshield. Regardless, it is unmistakable that this is a little baby Honda sports car. When it came out, it was competing against things like maybe the BMW Z3, a Porsche Boxster, and honestly, the Mazda Miata. This feels very similar in terms of the ingredients to a Mazda Miata. Small, naturally aspirated little engine, rear-wheel drive, manual, high revving, fun to drive, all about the driving engagement. A couple of other things to cover before we hop in the car and go for a drive. When you design a car that has no roof, structural rigidity is a very high concern. So what Honda did to address this was they used what they called a hybrid monocoque body and a high X-bone frame. What that translated to normal English means is it's got steel all over the place and an aluminum hood, so I guess that's the hybrid material usages. We'll keep the weight down. And then the high X-bone frame, if you look at the actual, the frame design of it, it's got a lot of strengthening structural elements. You'd actually see it in the passenger footwell. There's this frame member that comes and kind of encroaches into your cabin. A lot of structural bracing to maintain a solid body experience for a vehicle that has no roof. Now, it is a power soft top, so it can go up and down. This one has had it replaced with the newer soft top, so it has the glass window out back. Again, I've covered 6-speed manual only, 9,000 RPM. It doesn't make any power down low, which I am looking forward to experiencing. And also, definitely important to note, 50-50 weight distribution and tiny wheels and tires. These are 16-inch wheels with 205s up front and 225s out back. My Shelby has 305s up front and 325s out back. So this is hilarious little bike tires. Regardless, this car is all about driving fun. So let's hop in and go for a spin. All right, now that we are in the Honda S2000, well, in is a stretch because I feel like I'm barely in the car, like I'm sitting on top of it. It's not built for somebody of my height. I have a lot of legroom with the seat all the way back. Legroom is actually very good, but it's the headroom and just the fact that if I sat up straight, I would be looking right at the top of the windshield and the top of my head would be outside of the car, would not pass the broomstick test in this vehicle. And also, the steering column is fixed. So the steering wheel is between my legs right now. But this thing just immediately feels like a little go-kart. It's small and nimble. You do have to rev the heck out of this car to go anywhere. A car that revs to 9,000 RPM, an engine that revs to 9,000 RPM, really requires a little bit of recalibration in your brain because you're so used to shifting well before then. But this car's peak torque comes on at 7,500 RPM, so you really have to run it to redline to go anywhere. When I saw that number, I was like, well, first I laughed at it. It made 153 pound-feet of torque because that's just not a lot. But the fact that it comes on at 7,500 RPM is hysterical. That's very, very high up the rev range. But again, this car is about driving. You can have fun in a car without having a ton of horsepower. That is what this car absolutely proves because it's small and nimble. It's light, it's simple. It doesn't need gigantic wheels and tires and brakes because it is light and simple. The tires are 205s up front and 225s out back. That's tiny. That's so small. And the brakes are small too. I just drove a brand new RS6 which had brake rotors that are probably bigger than the entire wheel on this little Honda S2000. Other things about the interior. Now I talked about the space a little bit, but that's just the fact of me being 6'3". It's very, very driver focused. You have the nice tachometer in the middle. It sweeps across your entire dashboard, and it's like kind of, I mean, it's digital, but not like super advanced, but this car is 20 years old, but you can see the revs as it climbs across. You got a speedo in the middle, your odometer below, temperatures and fuel levels to the left and right. Allegedly, that was inspired by the McLaren F1 cars during this time period because they were partnered with Honda. Either way, I think it's pretty cool, and it's simple, it communicates what it needs to, and it doesn't feel super aged or anything. And the other crazy thing is, when I say driver-centric, it's driver-centric. All of the controls, climate here on the right, are angled towards me as a driver. There's nothing for the passenger to do. Not even like sound system stuff. The audio, the volume knob is here on the left-hand side of the steering wheel, above the engine start button. There is really nothing for whoever's sitting on this side to do. But to drive this car, 7,000 RPM. Shifter has nice short throws. The clutch you very quickly get comfortable with. I really like and respect cars where as soon as you get in, very, very quickly, you go through a couple gears and you're comfortable with the car. You know what to do to downshift, upshift, everything. The steering is so direct. This car is small and nimble. I mean, just in the lane, making these corrections. It's immediate what the car is going to do. But you really have to rev this car out to go like anywhere. I couldn't have gone for a more different car into this one. I've been driving a 760 horsepower Shelby GT500 to go into a Honda S2000. That's very different. Now, compared to its competitors, I've spent time in Mazda Miatas, and it is a very similar formula, and actually they will be compared. Convertible, rear-wheel drive, two-seater, little tiny sports car, but I think this approach to that recipe is much more special feeling. The fact that it revs at 9,000 RPM, that is a very special motor. I think I would prefer this to the Miata. Not that either of them fit me more comfortably or not, but this just feels a little bit more unique. Similar levels of nimbleness from what I can tell. Now, I'm not auto-crossing them back-to-back or anything. A couple other differences. I know this has a power soft top that actually has been replaced. We also should talk about Ap1 versus Ap2. So this, as a early 2000 model year S2000, was the first generation. They ran through many years into the Ap2. They made other changes too. They upsized the wheels, they changed spring rates, the fascia changed, the engine actually was stroked up to 2.2 liters, which lowered the redline a bit, but made it a little more power down low, so more usable for round-around driving. Regardless, this is a very, very clean example. Again, under 60,000 miles. That's impressive for a car that's 20 years old. So in terms of value, I think the S2000 has actually held very well in comparison. When you look at the competitors from when it came out, you look at Miatas, BMW Z3s, even a Porsche Boxster, the S2000 has done quite well. When new, apparently this was around $32,000. So in today's money, that's probably more so into the 40s. But the 30s for these cars, and now a good example will run you 15 to maybe 25, depending on year and mileage. There are some that are like $12,000, but the owner of this car was like, don't buy those. You don't want to buy those because they'll have other issues. They usually have well over 100, 120,000 miles on those cars. Maybe some other high expense maintenance things come up. But I mean, this is a lot of fun. If I was a foot shorter, I'd be even more comfortable, probably have more fun whipping this thing around, but it's put a big smile on my face, even though it's cold and I've got the top down right now. A car like this, I will circle back to it as I conclude my thoughts. It is proof that you don't need a lot of power to have fun. You can have fun in a simple sports car without a massive engine and all the other things that come with something like that. 0 to 60 in this car is not quick, like 5s or something like that. And apparently, in order to get that time, car and driver had to like drop the clutch at 7,000 RPM or something crazy. The owner was like, yeah, I think they did 0 to 60 in like 5 point something, but to do that, they had to drop the clutch at 8,000 RPM. Please don't do that to my car. And I'm like, I promise you I will not drop your clutch at 8,000 RPM. But this car shows simple does it better. I would take it over a Miata. I'm happy I finally got to drive an S2000. Hope you guys enjoyed this review. Thanks for watching. Thanks for all the support. And we'll see you guys next time.